when I found out there's a democratically elected process, I got pretty excited. Then I got really nervous because then I realized, oh my gosh, I have to say something meaningful. Usually I try to hide, my own personal feelings and opinions through humor. I don't think what I'm about to say will be humorous, but I hope you guys take it with a grain of salt regardless. So I wanted to take this time and share 2 lessons that I've been chewing on as I go through this MBA program. Actually, I've been here in Cornell for 3 years, so I guess I've been on the slow track. I'm a dual degree real estate guy, and real estate guys usually aren't the brightest, but we try to have as much fun as possible. But I think it's a good time for me to bring into the first lesson that I learned, and that for me was to seek progress, not perfection. And that really, really struck home with me. As a student, this is what typically I tend to do with things I really care about. I get that assignment or I get that idea that I really want to run with the next level and really, really challenge myself and really reach to the next level, right? You guys all know what I'm talking about. A lot of assignments we go through here, you're kind of going through the motions. You're like, okay, I understand this concept good enough and I'm going to move on. You don't tie your ego to it. But every once in a while, you find something that you really tie your identity to. And for me, when I find that, this is what I do. I literally throw in the back of my mind and I refuse to think about it. And I sit on a couch and I'm like, well, every time I think about it, I don't have the 100% solution yet. I don't want to think about it. Let's put it in the back of my mind. And I do that, and I do that, and I kick the can down the road until I literally have 48 hours or 24 hours or 12 hours or 6 hours right before I need to get that done. And I just sprint. And I just try to work on it as much as possible. And then I begin to protect myself and say, well, I only gave myself 6 hours. So even though I care a lot about it, it's still not the reflection of me, right? It's not a reflection of who I can be, the best of me. And if I were to tell my mom that, that's my sort of Achilles heel, that I procrastinate, she'd probably be like, well, it's not too surprising. Like, you're a perfectionist. I remember, so I moved from China to here when I was 6 years old. So I didn't speak a lick of English when I first got here. I remember by my 2nd grade, I got a report card back from my parents, or from my school to my parents. And typical Asian parents, she's like, how come you didn't get straight A's? You got an A- in English, or like reading, whatever it was, right? And the one comment, they actually scheduled a parent-teacher conference to discuss my A- in 2nd grade. And what the teacher said was like, well, Scott's fine. He understands what's going on, but he literally takes forever to write like a paragraph because he just takes the pencil and just nails it down into paper and goes super slowly and super methodically. So I think that, again, I think, mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters and best friends, they know us a little bit better than we do in often cases. So if I were to tell them, hey, I've trouble procrastinating because I want to make whatever I do that I really believe in perfect, and I'm just too scared to get ahead with it because I don't have the 100% solution, they'd be like, well, no shit, right? So that's the first lesson, is like, you know what? Don't seek perfection because we'll never find it, at least one form of it. But seek progress. Every day, work on something that you care about, knowing that you won't find perfection that day. But you'll have taken another step that you would have otherwise not taken if you hadn't thought of that. And that really ties to the next thought that I want to share with everybody was, what is the opposite of fear, right? So I was questioned that right before I deployed to Iraq back in 2010 as a young lieutenant. I was in command of about 40 young soldiers. Some of them had been overseas, others have not. But right before we left, we got actually a professional reading, right? And how our commander introduced it was, everybody, before you read this book, ask yourself, what is the opposite of fear? Is it the absence of fear? Or is it something else? To this day, I'm still searching for that answer, right? That book was The Gates of Fire, and it was about the story about the 300 Spartans who stood the line against the wave of Persian enemies. And it's a simplification of that question, right? Because in that book, they posit like love is the opposite of fear. And I think that's pretty meaningful, right? Because everybody feels fear in their life, just like Mike talked about. Everybody. Only the crazy person doesn't feel fear, or the ignorant person, because there could be a lot of things to be fearful about in life. But is love really the right answer? I didn't think so when I picked up the book and read it. I wasn't convinced. But actually, through my Johnson experience, I became more and more and more convinced, And really how I saw that was a little bit about me, right? Like, I care what people think about me. I care about my reputation. I care about my image, perhaps a little too much. I'm vain, right? I have vanity. And I suppose that's a good thing because it keeps me on track. It keeps me doing what I'm supposed to do. Right? It keeps me doing the right thing when I feel even others aren't watching. But really, it came to me that is fear what I want to be motivating me, my actions, and my purpose in life? And I look around and I see a lot of people here, a lot of students here who I think let love motivate them, right? So one example is entrepreneurship. I think it takes a lot of courage to go and pitch your idea, right? That identity shaping idea in front of people who are most likely going to say, no, you're not that smart, or someone else has thought about it, or hey, come on, man, this is just too wild, right? But they let that go forth with their being, right? And I think one thing that really, really stands out to me is that those who really take that risk and take that step forward, and it's not just entrepreneurship, it's really through anything, even answering a question in class that the professor asked that no one really knows, but you just want to throw out your idea anyways. Every single thing, it's really for love rather than fear, right? So let's take that, answering that crazy question in class, right? Some people we all know absolutely just jump on top of it. And I think it's their love for pursuit of knowledge, not the fear of the judgment that they have from their peers that really drive that home, right? And I admire that. I admire that a lot. So as I look to my Johnson experience and my Cornell experience, I see, number one, that there's always a day that we can spend on progress, not perfection, knowing that perfection will perhaps be down the line, but what's a perfect life anyways, right? Once you reached it, what else is there to live for? And number two, we can choose to live a life that we can be fearful about. There's so many unknowns out there. There's so many people that we think are judging us or are mocking us, right? But let's not live like that. Yeah, that may be true. But let's live on the opposite side of the same coin, which is to say, I'd rather put myself out there because, number one, I want to challenge myself, and I feel like I have that potential to challenge myself, and I love myself for doing so. And number two, I'm doing these things that take risks, but hopefully get these big rewards because I have those who rely on me, who I love. And that's why I hold up my shield and spear, proverbially, right? And go forward to these challenges. But, leave that fear behind. So thank you very much.